On day 21, we will drive out to Gold Dredge 8, where we will take their train and look around their property some. Then we will pan for gold and shop some before taking the train back to our car. Then we will drive to the University of Alaska at Fairbanks, where we will see the Museum of the North before going back to our hotel for the night. It's early in the morning when we head out for Gold Dredge 8 because we have tickets for the first tour. We arrive a little early at Gold Dredge 8 and we have to wait for the gate to open. This is part of a National Historic District. We'll park here in this parking lot and then we'll look at the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, take the train around to Gold Dredge 8 and spend some time there before taking the train back to the parking lot and leaving. The last time we looked at the pipeline, we didn't talk a whole lot about how it has been built to resist earthquakes. First, it zigzags, but also, as you can see, it's really not attached to anything. It can rock here and slide back and forth on top of this, so as the ground shakes, and you can see the padding on each side that hits the post to keep it centered. And here we hear a lecture and then head off to the train station, where we'll take a train to Gold Dredge 8.
I guess come north to Alaska, the land of glaciers and gold. Sea wolves.
As we leave the station, we'll be stopping at various places to find out about gold mining in this area. Felix Pedro discovered gold in July of 1902 in the streams here. That set off a mad gold rush. The first miners used rocker boxes like this to pan the streams, but soon the gold there ran out and most just went bust. So then they moved to drift mining operations. This is a medium-sized operation for drift mining. They'd have 2 to 4 men down the shaft digging for the gold and 4 men on top stockpiling the gold. They dig the shaft straight down, for the gold is down near the bedrock. The bedrock was anywhere from 30 to 300 feet deep they had to dig. And they would only do this during the winter. They would have steam to thaw out the ice down below. Once the bucket had been filled, it was raised out of the shaft and then taken down to the Genpo and dumped. This was the ore that they would pan during the summer. They only dug during the winter because the ground was frozen and thus made it safer, but during the summer the shafts would flood or they would collapse and they'd have to dig again. Since at this time gold was only $21 an ounce, they were just looking for the large stuff, the big nuggets. And this happened until 1920, when it got unprofitable to really do much more with it. In 1927, the Fairbanks Exploration Company, FE Company, came in with their Keystone drilling rigs. They would take a 3-inch pipe and pound it all the way down 30 to 300 feet to bedrock and then pan the contents of it to see how much gold was there. They did this thousands of times all over the valley and produced what they call the drill log. Then based on that drill log, they bought up 34,000 acres in the valley. Next, the first step of their placer mining is to strip off the overburden. This takes a tremendous amount of water, so they built the Davidson Ditch to divert the Chattanooga River. The Davidson Ditch was 90 miles long. This 10-foot by 10-foot ditch ran along the ridge lines, and then they dropped pipes off to bring the water into the field. It was gravity fed and started off with a 3-foot in diameter pipe and got down to a 3-inch water cannon with 150 pounds of pressure per square inch. And this just blew off the organic material on top of the gravel. You can see from this picture how much they had to blow away to get down to the gold-bearing gravel. Next, after stripping off the overburden, they have to thaw out the permafrost gravel so they can mine it. This also will take a tremendous amount of water. They will drive in thaw points, 16-foot intervals all around the valley, and will pour 40-degree water down it to thaw the permafrost. These were driven in by hand with a 24-pound hammer weight, and each man was responsible for 20 or 30 of them. Up to this point, you spent about 7 years getting ready to dredge the gold. And now it's time to move in the Gold Dredge. Gold Dredge 8 was built in 1927 at the Bethlehem Steel Yards in Pennsylvania. It was put on rail cars and shipped to San Francisco, put on boats, brought to Seward, put on a train and brought to Fairbanks, and then put on the narrow gauge train like what we rode in to bring it here for assembly. It took 114 flat cars to get here. It was assembled on site at just a little bit west of Fox in 1928 at the head of the Gold Stream Valley. It'll operate until 1959. In over 30 years of gold dredging, it moved only 4.5 miles. Originally, they dug a pond by hand down to bedrock about 160 feet and then floated it in it, but from then on, it dug its own water system. There would be a crew of 6 on board. First, you had the winchman, who from the control room ran the bucket line in the direction of the dredging. Then you had 2 oilers who would oil and grease all the joints and everything in the moving parts. You had 2 deckhands who made repairs and even created points that they needed. And then lastly, you had a panner. He monitored the sluice boxes and made test pans every once in a while of the gold to make sure they stayed on the cash stream. For all its size, it's a fairly simple machine. Let's see how it operated. First, we'll look at the digging arm or digging ladder. It's where the bucket line went around. There were 68 buckets around it, each holding 6 cubic feet of gravel. So each bucket weighed about 1,500 pounds when full. The arm could dig 35 feet below waterline and usually took about a 6-inch cut into the gravel each time it went over it. It had a gantry where it could be raised and lowered, and there was also a speed control for the buckets. There were 3 sets of controls in the control room. One was to control the bucket, raise and lower it, and to control its speed. Then you had the bow controls to guide the front end where you wanted it to go and raise and lower the game plane. And then you had the stern controls that allowed it to maneuver the back end also. Here's a movie of the dredge actually in action, the bucket line digging. Next, after you've dug up all that gravel, you dump it into the hopper, which feeds into the washing trammel in the center of the dredge. It's 36 feet long and 6 feet in diameter and rotates around fairly rapidly. It had holes ranging from 3/8 of an inch to 1 inch and 5/8, and the larger gravel washed out and the smaller pieces stayed in. It would use over 8,000 gallons a minute to wash the gravel. Here you can see one of those panels from the trammel, and you can see compared to my hand the size of the holes that the gravel would fall through. The pieces that were too large to go through the hose ran down this channel. The larger pieces that were too big to go through the hose was sent out the back through the stacking arm, which was basically a big conveyor belt. In this old picture, you can see the tillings that would be left by that stacking arm. It had its own gantry to raise and lower it, move it from side to side, and it was covered so that they could operate later into the winter before all that water started freezing up and they had to shut down until the summer again. The parts that were small enough to fall through the trammel holes fell into the sluice boxes, where it is now panned for gold. There were 16 sluice boxes with various riffles within them. The riffles are designed to pull the gold out of the gravel and let the real gravel go on out the end. On the bottom was a mat made out of coconut hull fibers to collect the gold. Some riffles had holes like this that had mercury in them to form amalgams with the gold and collect the smallest pieces. Others like these were to suck the gold down out of the rocks and onto the coconut mat. They were made in various ways and used in different combinations across the riffles for maximum gold retention. Part of the art of running the sluice boxes was to determine what riffles you would use and where. Every 2 weeks they would shut the dredge down and clean out the sluice boxes to gather the gold.
They then shoveled into lock boxes like you see here. They'd fill these up to the brim, close them down, lock them up, and it would take 2 grown men to carry one of these to a waiting pickup truck to move that cleanup from this camp to the FE Company offices in town. Once there, that's when they started the refining process on the gold. And what they used is called a retort system. What that is a very large furnace. But they would pack those concentrates in that retort, close the door down and secure it, then dial in the heat to that furnace. 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit to get the gold to melt and to burn off the impurities. Once that was completed, they'd open up that retort door wide, tilt the furnace forward, then pour that liquid gold into one of these. This is a 700-ounce brick mold. Once the gold bars all had cooled, they'd plop them out on the cleanup table and knock the slag off of them. They weighed 58 pounds, and get this, they would wrap each bar individually in brown paper, stick a stamp on it, and mail it to the mint in San Francisco. They never lost a one of them.
They would collect about 4,000 ounces of gold every time they cleaned it out, and over its life it made 7.5 million ounces of gold. The last component that they needed was a power plant. They built it in Fairbanks, and they ran a 4-inch 240-volt cable all the way through the woods for 10 miles, and then literally plugged in Gold Dredge 8, and it started operating. Here you can see part of that cable on the ground. And now it's time to teach us how to pan for gold.
This is a poke sack filled with gold concentrates. Be sure to get one. Have a seat at one of the pans. Pour the entire contents of the poke in the pan. Set the poke aside. The crew will pick that up in a bit. With your pan in hand, scoop into that water trough. Fill your pan with water. Start shaking it side to side. Also, tilt the pan away from you. This angle is important. Now, gold is almost 20 times heavier than water. So shaking it aggressively, you're going to be at this angle, you're going to be concentrating the gold right here in what is the deepest part of the pan. Then take a look at the surface. You will have shaken to the top some larger gravels just with the tips of your fingers and water in your pan. Drag those back, rinse them in the pan, and sweep them out. Or throw them in your neighbor's pan, then they're out of yours. Now grab some more water, keeping your pan at that angle tilted away, shaking it aggressively so you're still concentrating the gold. The next step is to start taking layers off. And this is just as easy. You stop shaking. You pour the water out. Hold the angle the water left the pan. Then lightly dip in and lift straight up. You'll see a top light layer slip right off the face of that paint pile. More water, more tilt, more shaking. You're still concentrating the gold down and getting ready to take some more layers off. So you stop shaking again, pour the water out to what I call a healthy tablespoon of pay dirt. And Then you change how you move your water. And this also is just as easy. You roll the water like it's a marble up and over that pay pile and let the water pull that down. Slowly back the other way. Just back and forth. The old timers taught me this. We've got expertise in their fans. Also, to let you know, we are all going to be...
We now arrive by train at the major headquarter building, and we're going to go pan for some gold for ourselves. I'll be there in a minute. Save me a seat, Deborah.
Morning. Nice to play in the dirt.
Let me see your dirt poured in. Check it out good. There might be gold right in the bottom of it. So did the FE company get all the gold? No, this gold came from there. So why did they stop? Well, from 1927 to 1964, they operated and sold gold on the open market. But then the federal government took over as the only person who could buy gold, and it became non-profitable, so they just shut down. The rush will soon be on, for Deborah has hit gold. I found this 19-ounce nugget worth $75,000. Well, I actually found it on one of the counters there. Now it's time to go weigh our gold and see what we're going to go do with it. Deborah decided to put hers in a necklace. And now it's time to get back on the train and listen to some of Earl's music again. Then we head back to the parking lot, and there are tour buses everywhere. Tour buses are everywhere. It's now time for us to drive to the University of Alaska at Fairbanks and see the Museum of the North.
Something about trains getting ready to go. Big steel rail headed places unknown. She's been a workhorse most of America's life. Still a sight of freedom headed into the night. Ooh, ride that train. Ooh, ride that train.
On our way through the university, we find Sinful Street, and now at the Museum of the North.
Gives you time to see the land wherever you go.
It has a beautiful view over Fairbanks from its mountainside. This is a two-story museum with science exhibits on the ground floor and art upstairs.
The grounds are rocking underneath that rail. The rain and snow and sleet and hail. Hear that rumbling sound? She's on her way. She's a northern bound. Ride that train. Ride that train. Train, that train headed into the night. I hear the cars click and sway and left and to right. Ooh, I love that a big train sound. I'm a train riding man, I'm Alaska bound. The ground's rocking underneath that rail through rain and snow and sleet and hail. Ooh, hear that rumbling sound. She's on her way, she's a loitering around. The nights are cold and bitter with the beauty of their own, while northern lights shine brightly in the skies above our home. The Dipper and the North Star give direction through the night to mushing dogs and trappers, while the moon provides the light. There's beauty in this night sky when the air is cold and clear, when the sound of howling wolves at times is all that one can hear. We dress in furs and mukluks to withstand the bitter cold, until in spring we change to boots so we can mend for gold. We've made it through the winter with nights long, cold and dark, and now enjoy the summertime in a state that's one big park. The daylight has grown longer, now the summer has arrived. The snow is gone and flowers bloom and things just come alive. The bear has crawled out from his den, the salmon rushed to spawn. The geese and ducks have come up north with all the cranes and swans. The birds are laying eggs now, wild animals give birth.
Now it's time to head back to our hotel at the River Edge Resort. This is the view out our window to the Chena River, and so we'll walk along the river some and see some of the sights, including the black ducks that are swimming there right now.
Nature puts on quite a show. The puffins, whales, and dolphins seem to play before our eyes.
We will walk down the Chena River to the Chena Alaskan Grill, and that's where we'll eat supper tonight. This will be our last day of exploring Fairbanks. We'll be back here when we fly out, but won't be looking around a whole lot.
Well, you have been busy today. I hear you found gold. We had a stampede here about 100 years ago because of that stuff. The gold dredging was something, was it not? It is amazing all the effort people go to get some of that yellowish stuff you call gold, and you can't even eat it. Thanks also for coming to see me at the Museum of the North. We have some really fascinating exhibits here and I know you enjoyed them. Well, have a great time as you head to Denali National Park tomorrow and stay safe. I might see you when you get down to Seward.
And thus we end day 21.